Hello, everyone. Kim here, Abundant Life Tarot. I have my dear friend and co-host Donna from Artists and Oracles with me for another episode of Artistry of Cartomancy, AOC. And we love to get together from time to time to have important discussions for those of us who are called to read or do healing for other people. Not that those who read for themselves are not welcome here. You might pick up on some information that means something to you for sure. But Artistry of Cartomancy is definitely for those of us who have that calling, that nudge, that inkling inside of us to do readings. And we have a very wonderful topic today to get into. It is a video response to Aunty K, Krista from Aunty K's Tarot. I've been posting it, sharing it. The video is called A Different Kind of Ethics. Check out her channel, subscribe, support, because she has a lot of great content. And she's just, that Gemini spirit, always has these amazing thoughts. And just, she's also a great deck creator too. So check her out. Donna, welcome. I'm happy you're here.
Thank you. Lovely to be with you again, as always.
Yay. I'm happy you're here. So let's talk about it. Let's touch on how we got to this video and what inspired us to talk about this topic, a different kind of ethics. I didn't continue the rest of it for psychics and readers and witches and
spiritual folks.
Spiritual folks. Yes.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Well, I just came across this Krista's video and I was drawn in by the title and had a listen, and I just felt like she made so many great points, and there were several things that I hadn't really thought about in the same way that she had. And so I started having a conversation with Kim, and we've been sitting with this and working on this for a bit, and finally now we found the right date to be together. So we wanted to share this ongoing. We've been having this discussion for over a month, right, Kim?
For sure.
Which is great because we've had time to really let it sink in and percolate.
Yeah, it's quite the subject. I mean, Krista's video on TK is only 11 minutes and I think 38 seconds. How she managed to pack such thought-provoking information into 11 minutes and 38 seconds, I don't know, but she did it. And it got us to thinking about the topic of politeness masked as or classism, actually masked as politeness. What is polite? What are we allowed to read on? And we want to know where all this politeness came from and where is it really truly stemming from? And is it a form of classism?
Mm-hmm.
Because
and disguised as ethics too, like, the certain ethics that all readers must follow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ethics are subjective, like lots of things are subjective.
True.
Yeah.
True. Lots of things. We all collectively can understand, like, taking someone's life, that's morally, ethically, all the things wrong. But then when it comes to, like, for example, third-party readings, who decided? Why did they decide?
Right.
Yeah. That's the question. So we are going to get into that today with y'all.
Mm-hmm. Pages of notes, literally, from this 11-minute video we have. So we're anticipating there's going to be a part 2, but we'll see how far we get today, because there's lots we want to
unpack. We want to unpack. So for you, what did you think what was impactful for you in terms of what she said in light of politeness versus ethics or being polite or morally right?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at my notes here. So we've already presented like one of the major themes is this classism versus racism. Is it both? Which is more prevalent? What's going on? What's underneath all the politeness? Then also, I just want to say the other two themes up front, Kim, right? And we'll see if we get to them today or not, but just to give our listeners kind of an overview of this big topic here. Then she also talked a lot about survival for clients. The concept that a lot of times clients, they come to us because they're literally having very real survival issues in their life, and they've chosen uh a psychic reading, a tarot, a divination reading as their modality of choice. And they've chosen us out of thousands, millions of people they could seek out for help. They wind up at our doorstep. And she just talks a lot about being aware of, how much it's a matter of survival for people. And I was very, very struck by that. And I definitely have a sense of I've had a sense of that, but now I have like an even deeper sense of that. I think there's a lot of truth to that. So we want to chat about that. And then the other major theme that Kim and I noticed was that the whole idea of being culturally sensitive. Every time a new person comes to you for a reader, of just trying to get a sense of who is this person? What is their background? What obstacles do they have to deal with? What should I be aware of? Being a culturally sensitive reader, and this I love, because this is a biggie for me. I really strive for that all the time, and I think that it's so important. And I think it's one of the hardest things for us to do as readers, especially if you're working on certain platforms where like people come and go quickly, and you don't even always get to interact with them live or see them. And
True.
so you're relying purely on intuition, and
Mm-hmm.
what little information they share with you. Um, so that's a biggie. So those are our three big things: classism versus racism, survival for clients, and cultural sensitivity for our clients.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Thank you too, because it is important to note that we have a lot to cover. We have a lot to cover, and this is why we might have to, come back for a part two. But we'll see, like you said, what we get through. But that's it. The survival piece. I can't wait to talk about that, because a lot of people, you know, even will exert judgments on the querent or on the client for coming to us, psychics, tarot readers, etc., when they're like, well, they clearly need a therapist. Okay, all right, well, but they came to your doorstep, so what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to keep the door closed and not help and serve? So I'm looking forward very much to that part to
Well,
get into.
we could start right there. Like, that's such a great example. We want to start right there. Like
Yeah, let's start. Yeah, let's
that
start where we're
that
called to
whole
go.
right, that whole belief bias that and listen, I'm definitely pro therapy. This is not coming from an anti-therapy play.
Right.
But we've been sort of ingrained these days to be like, well, listen, you should seek out the advice of a professional therapist. There's so
Yeah.
much elitism in that. There's just the
So much.
basic assumption that the person can even afford therapy, that they even
Right.
have the financial means to afford therapy. Then right behind that is the whole very real possibility that they have baggage around seeing a therapist. There's still plenty of people that
Stigma.
think if I go
Mm-hmm.
to a therapist, that means I'm crazy. There's a huge cultural stigma around
Mm-hmm.
getting mental health services.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that may be
Culture.
right, never going to happen for them. But here they are with you. They're sitting there with you. They're
Mm-hmm.
cracking the door of, I need some kind of mental, emotional, spiritual help.
Yeah.
So we're on deck as a psychic. We're on deck. What can we provide for them? Just
Right.
kind of slap them with, well, you need to go see a therapist. Uh,
Yeah.
what is that? That can be more hurtful than helpful, right? If you
Right.
start there.
Yes. If you start there, it doesn't mean that you don't end up there. After you've helped them, with their immediate question of what brought them to you, you certainly can say, and one of the things is being a professional reader or psychic is being able to kind of triage, if you will, to understand, okay, yeah, this person, let's say they need immediate medical attention. You're going to tell them that if they need immediate,
Of
like,
course. Of course.
psychiatric help. But most of the time people are not in that place and space. You know what I'm saying? They're not like, I'm going to take my life, I'm going, this is it. You might encounter that, but chances are no. Most of the time it's like, I'm dealing with a very challenging situation in my marriage. Yes, therapy can help, but I've also had many clients who scrounged up some change to get a reading from me. They don't have good health insurance in the States, right? They don't have good health insurance. Their spouse doesn't want to do couples therapy. They're at their wits' end on what to do. So where in the elitism is this coming from, where this whole thing of, well, I can't do anything for you, I feel like you need therapy, bye, like, why is that? Why did
Why
that
is
come
that?
about?
And how does that serve your client?
Right,
Even if we never figure out the why, who, what, but like, you know, how is that serving your client? How is that honoring them, helping them?
right. How does that help them? You know, and yes, there have been times where at the end, like the cards, I even have cards like that'll say, suggest getting a counselor or going for group therapy or something. Like, I have cards, literally the oracle meaning is that. And after I've sat with my client for a while, they're more receptive than ever. They'll even reveal, yeah, when I get with this new job, the first thing I'm going to do when I get my new health insurance is I'm going to start getting therapy. I know I've been feeling that. I know it'll help me. Versus if I slammed the door in the beginning, before we even got there, they might be like guards up. And like you mentioned before, there's a lot of societal, cultural stigma, depending on where they come from our society, surrounding getting therapy or getting psychiatric help. So yeah, it's just, there's a lot. There's a lot with that. I just love that Krista touched on that, because it's like the whole judgments. And like you mentioned before about the platform, certain hotline platforms, for example, not your own private practice. If you're doing readings or healing sessions for, on your website or what have you, this is different. If you're working for the hotlines, they have specific rules about, you can't do medical readings, or, like, give medical advice, financial advice, lawyer type advice, no giving lottery numbers, fortune telling, that kind of thing. You can't really do that per se. Um, but in your private practice, if you're called to tap into certain, you know, modalities, why not? I feel like there's something going on when people tell you you're not supposed to do these types of readings. It's not right. It's like I don't understand that. And it always makes me bristle when I hear you should not do that. I'm the rebel in me is always bristling. What do you say? How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm bristling now. I'm real. I this whole topic made me realize how much there were this whole set of kind of rules that I just ascribed to early on when I stepped into oh, I want to do card, I want to be a professional card reader. So we're like, okay, well, we can do this, but we don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I took them on board, whether I was reading my own private practice clients, or whether I was reading on someone else's platform or someone else's, shop or whatever. I've just sort of agreed to a lot of this, and now I'm rethinking it. I'm really starting to rethink about, well, it's all how you do it. You What Krista spends a lot of time talking about in this video is, what are your ethics? She just kind of says over and over, like, what are your ethics? What do you
Mm-hmm.
believe? Who are you serving? Who are your clients? Who's
Mm-hmm.
your audience? Who are you serving?
Mm-hmm. I
And
love it.
that's such a valuable thing. I mean, I think that's kind of what Kim and I are jumping on board with here too. Like, yeah, let's really start talking about that. Like, let's all get clear about like what are your ethics as a cartomancer?
And who are you serving in that reading session? I just love when she poses that. And like you said, constantly circling back to what are your ethics? Because we're all complicit in keeping that going. When we first start out as baby readers, baby psychics, we first start out, we hear a lot about what you should do, what you shouldn't do, this or that. And so, you get this framework of what is polite to do, what is not polite to do. And then you might start to feel a nudge to do a different kind of reading that's on the do not list. And then you feel a way about that. And it's like, okay, well, why, I don't want to always just be complicit in keeping up a system that is just meant to just stymie our ability to heal, to stymie our ability to help others. It just seems to me like sometimes some of these rules and things, it's not really anything other than somebody deciding that this is what was right. And then everybody jumping on the bandwagon, groupthink, and continuing that on and perpetuating that on for generation over generation until finally some of us are like, that's not for me. Here are my ethics. This is what works for me. Now, your ethics might rub up against certain, things and people and entities. But it's important to be clear. You're always going to hear me say it's important to be clear about what you're doing, who you're serving, and why. Your ethics. So I think
Absolutely.
that's interesting. Yeah. Who am I
So
serving?
what right. And one of the first examples that Krista gives in this video is readings. What if that's really just a code for or she presents it as, another way to think about third-party readings as, does the wife have a right to know that her husband's cheating on her?
Mm.
Does she have a right to know that? And think about if she doesn't know that, all that comes with that historically, even still for a woman.
Yeah.
So if he
Yeah.
is, I'm just using the example that she used. Okay, we could flip it around. Could be the husband cheating on the wife, whatever. It could be same-sex marriage, whatever.
True.
If the person's cheating, well, then the other person could be subject to STDs right off the bat.
Yep.
Okay, so that's a health concern for your client who's plopped down in front of you and said, I need to know if my husband's cheating on me. And if you
Right.
immediately cop, like, I can't do I can't help you. Like, that's a very real issue for her. Is cheating. Is he going to take off with somebody else and leave her penniless? And then how's she going to survive?
Right.
Survival. There's the survival theme
Survival.
again.
Yep.
This is real life survival for people. We
Yeah.
mustn't lose sight of that.
No, you mustn't
Because
lose sight of that.
most people don't come to us just like for fun. Like, oh yeah. Like they come when things like when the shit hit the fan and they're like, somebody's gonna help me figure this out. I don't know. And I need somebody who can keep a secret, or I need somebody that's like not already all up in my business anyway. Somebody
It's true.
anonymous,
Yes.
somebody that's really got some skills, some gifts. Let me
Yeah,
go find myself a card reader and see what they can see and figure out. So it's very real. It's very
it is. That is very real. It's so true. Let me tap into my with my card reader. Let me check in. I have a client who is really, I have a few, but one I'm thinking of. She's struggling in her marriage, and we check in about once a week. And and yeah, we are doing, I guess, what you would consider third party readings. I don't, you know, I just never looked at it like that. This whole business of third party. I'm like, if we're doing readings with people involved and there's other people involved, and I just the concept is just kind of like hard for me to even wrap my mind around. Even when I first started reading learning how to be a reader. And probably soon after I started learning how to read tarot, I said, I want to do readings for other people. And then I started doing readings for other people, colleagues, friends, family members. And inevitably you're asking about them and then someone else and then someone else, right? And I'm like all into it, doing these third party readings. And then I go to an event where other readers are, we're not supposed to do third party readings. And I'm like, and I'm a baby reader at that point. I'm like, is that what I'm doing? That's what I've been doing?
What is that? What does that mean? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then I couldn't I couldn't unlearn what I've been doing because it's a part of what I do. I love doing readings. And so there's always a shame. I always end up doing the readings I'm not supposed to be doing. That I should not be doing.
Right.
Third party readings, missing persons readings for people who want to conceive babies. Like I'm always up in the mix. Celebrity readings sometimes. I feel like you shouldn't do that. They didn't give you permission. The cheating husband didn't give you permission. And I'm like, but the person who I'm serving has asked me if spirit is giving me information and I can see it clearly, who am I to keep that to myself? My ethics is I am here to help and serve the person who's sitting in the chair. Now, if they are asking me like, how can I hurt this person? That's against my personal ethics because I don't want to harm with my magic or my, skills, my intuitive hunches. But, come on,
It is just such a funny concept when you really dig into it and you think about it. It's just like one of these buzzwords, amongst, even people that aren't readers, just people in the spiritual community. Oh, third party, no third party. No. I was saying to Kim before the show, like I was even taught that, 30 years ago as a newbie Reiki practitioner, it's a belief in Reiki. You're not allowed to send Reiki unless you have permission. Now, again, I also immediately said to her, it's kind of apples and oranges because it is a different thing. When you're sending Reiki, you are imposing healing upon someone. When you're reading cards, you're not, you're just looking for information. You're sharing information with the person in front of you.
True.
So, I don't send healing per se, when I read cards. But the whole concept, where was I going with that? The whole like third party, like we're all interrelated, right?
Right.
Like, how do you help one like all of our lives, it's all about our relationships. Whether it's a work reading, well, that's all about the relationships you have going on with your employers or your employees.
Yep. Your colleagues. Yeah, the
your
vendors
health.
that you work with. Yeah, your health.
What's your relationship to your doctor and your therapist, and how are things at home? What is the quality of the relationships of your marriage and your children? Like that all affects your health. So how do you just read for the one person sitting in front of you? No, you're going to have to ask. You're going to have to look at all the people in their lives and answer their questions about those people.
Yeah. And I genuinely want to know, for those who watch the replay, we don't have anyone in the chat now, but those who watch this replay, I want to know, like, if you're that person who does not do, let's just say third party readings as an example, have you asked yourself, why is that? And if you have, what came up for you? Where did that stem from? How do you feel about that? Are you solid about that? Hey, Beth. Hi. Thank you for being here. You're just listening. Yes, we're just chit-chatting and you're listening. Thank you for being here. Where did that come from? And this is not to be like shaming you or anything like that. This is me genuinely being curious, because I know where for a while I really tried to resist doing that, but something in me was like, this is not your path. You are to read in these where I shine, I think, as a reader is interpersonal relationships and dynamics. Some people are very good at predicting the future. Some people are very good at, certain I'm just thinking of the different ways at which our gifts really shine. I love interpersonal relationships. I love troubleshooting problems in relationships.
And love readings.
And love readings.
Your real specialty in love readings.
Yes, that's my home skillet. that's where I feel strong at. So to tell myself, no, don't do them anymore because it's just ethically wrong. It just doesn't fit for me. So I'm genuinely curious to see what you all have to say about it. Also, anything, let's say we didn't have parameters on medical read, like if you could tap in and you could feel something, and you could probably chime in on this, Donna, about medical readings, or some of us who have a law background, or some of us who are really, like, we used to be financial advisors. You're not giving it financial advice, but if somebody was like, I don't know where to begin on how to get my finances together, and that was something you were really adept at, your walk of life, your experience, that goes in with the divination that you do. You just don't, to me, it feels weird to take your hat off of what you used to be and just only be a psychic and only have enlightened messages. No, they came to you because you offer something, not just the magic, not just the woo woo, but because you have walked a path. So why are we expected to take that hat off? Like if we had a good, strong, maybe we were a lawyer at one point, and now we just decide to take on this new role of being a reader. You just gonna turn that off? You certainly can. But should you have to now? That's the question.
Well, and because you can try, I don't know, I would argue like you can try, but you can't really, because who you are is in your energy field. And I've seen over the decades of doing different kinds of spiritual work, like back when I did feng shui work regularly, it took me a couple years, but I began to figure out like why people came to me and when and how they came to me. And that there was this theme of like, it was all about that I was artistic and that I was creative and that they wanted to connect with that. And I started calling it creativity reconnection. They needed help reconnecting with their creativity. And because that's me, I dress colorfully and I wear jewelry and and I have a theater background. Like it's just in my field.
Yes.
And it would happen even when people hadn't met me or heard about me from a friend. They would see my card somewhere. It was literally in the energetic imprint of my business card. And they would just like pick up my business card, in the health food store. And then I'd get a call and I'd go to their home. And immediately I was like, oh my gosh, just from my card, they sensed, they knew that I could help them with creativity, their creative expression in their home.
Yes.
That was like the bottom line. So I'm agreeing with you, Kim. I'm saying like, yeah, we could try to shut that off, but like who we are is who we are. And it has all these interesting ways of rippling out to our clients. And by the time they get to us, I always love to be like, okay, why this person today, now, like what synchronicities are going to be with like me and my life and, and then what do they need? Why is it that they've come to me?
I love that too. Even all this time, I think about that. Like, how did you pick me out of a whole sea of readers? Like, even with like not the business cards, but like your profile, whether you're on Etsy or maybe you're a YouTuber or something, and you have your private website, for business, or hotlines. They find your profile in the mix of all these other profiles, hundreds of readers, and they chose you. And it's like, and then after the reading, you're like, I know why spirit linked us together. I know why you found me. And I never, it's one of those things about offering readings for others that always just tickles me, like, oh, look, they found me. And I'll say something like that after the reading. I'm like, look at that. You found me. And they're like, I'm so glad I found you. I'm like, yes, because there was something that my walk in life, in addition to me doing cards or doing readings, attracted you because you're going through something similar to maybe what I've gone through or what I'm going through now today. And we're linked,
Yeah.
I find that magical. Hey,
it's the mystery. Yeah.
It's the mystery of it all. And I don't tire of it. And, many of us have our backgrounds. Some people don't know. I used to be a claims adjuster for many years. I was an arbitrator an analyst. I have all these different skill sets that somehow, some way infiltrates into my readings. They're like, it's like, oh, they're asking about this. And I know about this. I'm not going to turn it off. I'm not going to give them legal advice, but I'm not going to just be like, oh, nope, can't answer it. No, this makes me my unique self. It's my past experiences. Or
And
maybe go ahead.
And that's real world, like grounded, practical. Like I love that. And I kind of pride myself on like, I can be very intuitive, mystical, deeply spiritual, all of that, but like I'm also very practical. I have a lot of Virgo in my chart, and I am grounded and practical because we all have to live, we all have to maintain these tricky little physical bodies in this very physical 3D world.
True.
And the year is 2025. Let us say it for those watching in the replay. It's June 2025. Okay, this is a very interesting time to be alive on the planet. And if you are in North America, or like Kim and I, like, oh my goodness, there's so much going on with the United States. I'm up in Canada, with Mexico. Like, it's a very tricky time, and we are all just day to day. First of all, trying to keep up in whatever way you can, or you feel able to, just have a basic, like, okay, what is going on today? Trying to navigate, trying to be like, okay, what next? What does this mean for me? My health, my finances, my country, my, like,
my liberty.
Oh my goodness.
All of that.
My rights.
My freedom, my rights. And
my
if we're feeling
safety.
that, exactly. My bodily safety. If we feel that, our querents feel that.
Absolutely.
They're absolutely going. That's why they picked up the phone. Like, they see the ad on, let's say, I get the ads all the time because I'm a reader, on YouTube or where, how you get your little ads or, in between videos. And it's like, one of the big hotlines comes through. Are you in need of some guidance? Have you been, and I chuckle to myself, and I'm like, that's how they find the clients. So like, okay. But they pick up that phone, or they call, or they chat, or whatever, and it feels so good for them. Let's see. Lisa says, tuning in on commute. Thank you, my dear friend, for being here today. I appreciate you. And Beth says, third-party readings is a boundary issue for me. I like that, like, this is a boundary issue for you. But I will read for the querent about their relationship with that person. And there's a lot of crossovers, right? Right? So that's
a great point.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Because as readers, right, we often, seasoned readers, we can tell kind of right up front when they come to you and the question's all about the other person, right? And I immediately am like, okay, but like, I want to make sure they don't lose themselves in that, because like, just knowing about what's going on with the other person, like that, how is that going to help the client?
Right.
So I often find myself, as skillfully as I can, as sort of, unjudgmental as I can, being like, okay, but let's bring this back to you, because what the cards are saying to you is, this is what you need to work on. This is what you need to be aware of. This is what's not serving you, right? Don't get too focused on the client. So that's a great part. I hear what she's saying in there, right? It's a boundary issue.
For sure.
You'll help them with a relationship, but you don't want to.
Yeah, get all up in the business. Like, getting all up in the business is a difference. Like,
right, we're not spies. We're not professional spies. And lots of times, right, people come in like, oh, well, you can just spy on, spy on my ex for me. Like, what is she doing? Like, well, like, oh, it depends. But, but I've had that one. Like,
well, what about like with the let's use the cheating husband example, right? So this is a significant relationship issue in the querent's mind, right? She is really concerned that her husband has pulled back. It seems secretive now. He bought a new cologne, and he stays well after hours, beyond when he's supposed to get off work. He's supposed to come home. Now he's, all those things, right? So there is a level of snooping, if you're going to take on that question or to help that query. But there is a artful way of of just keeping it in the parameters of the relationship questions and then empowering the querent.
Right.
There is there, or if she's just like, well, I think I saw him or texting a woman, what were they talking about? Did he go to get a hotel room? And what were they doing? Then you're starting to enter some territory that's a little, and spirit. I have an arrangement with my divine guides and spirit, where sometimes spirit will just make it very opaque for me. Like I can't, and I've talked about this a lot on the channel in the past. I'm very upfront. When I can't feel or see something, I will say it. If like it's gobbledygook, like what I mean by like the energies are like, I can't tell. You look at the cards, I'm like, it's not making sense. It's because that person that we're asking about may have an energetic wall, or spirit is like, this querent doesn't need to know that, or you all don't need to be just having discourse over it. And I let the querent know, I can't get a read on this. Let's pose another question. Let's try it. Let's see if we can, ask another question. They respect it. And then I'm honoring myself in that process as well, Lee says, for real, for real, for real. And Beth says, frankly, I would prefer less interesting times or interesting in different ways. Hello. I want boring again, Beth. Where's the boring times? The sweet times of boring. Hello, Tony says. Hello, Kim and Donna. I'm catching up just on the therapist point, potential elitist recommendations. Not everyone everywhere has to pay, making an acceptable suggestion to me. Very true. Very, very good point, Tony. And I wish I'm jealous.
I don't quite get that. It? Wait, explain what she's saying to me. Not everyone. Not everywhere.
Yes. So I don't know about in Canada, but I know in Europe, they don't have to pay or worry about health insurance costs.
Oh, I see.
They may also have access to so let's say we have good coverage. When I worked for the state of California, I had good health insurance. But Lord, I'm calling, this was during the pandemic. I'm calling, I need to see a therapist. Well, it's 6 weeks out before you can see one, but here you can do a quick 15-minute telephone connect with your potential therapist. Not even my actual one, just somebody who's doing triage. Then it's another 6 weeks after that. You see what I'm saying? The access is, so most of my clientele are American or North American. I do have quite a few European clients, some in Australia, basically English speaking folk. But actually, no, I even have folks who speak a different language. They just use software to convert my language or whatever. But mainly America. That's where my clients are from. So it is different. And you're right. And don't be shy. If you need to triage, what I mean triage, if somebody's got a lot of financial questions or clearly they got legal issues going on, okay, well, we could ask the certain questions, but I think this is best handled. I would recommend that you contact legal counsel or a doctor. There's nothing wrong with that because not everything, we are not here to save the world in that sense. So does that make sense, Donna?
I got you now. I just didn't quite catch that.
New cologne? No, oh, honey, no cards needed. There's some things that, you could just say, you could do like this. Where's my deck? You could be like, actually, like, I don't even need these. I don't need this deck. I'm just going to converse with you.
You just need a big sister. Yeah.
Big sis. I'm big sis or auntie.
A granny.
Yeah.
Auntie.
Let me just have that moment. Child. Yeah, for real, Beth. New cologne. Red flag. No. What if you get it wrong and they hurt the cheater later? It's a risk, but there could be, what if someone, they ask a work question? And then also in America, we have a lot of workplace violence. I mean, I'm just going to call a spade a spade. there's always a potential that people are going to take your information and run with it and do something wild. What if they say, you know what, I think they're cheating? And I'm always very careful about saying outright that they're cheating, unless I'm for sure. You know what I'm saying? We could talk about that at another point, but they can always take off with that information. Say, I'm filing divorce, but probably there were other stuff that would be like leading them to file divorce anyway. All you can do is be, honest, ethical, and mindful of what you're giving out. And from there, where the querying goes, that's where they go.
And that, it's a good point. And to me, it's also, it's a very stylistic thing. So for me right now, the way I read and the way I practice, I don't never present my readings as like, this is absolutely what's going on for you. This is the truth. Like, I just say, my senses, it seems to be the cards are showing. It's not a be all end all.
That's
because
true.
First of all, to do that, number one, for me, that's disempowering to my clients.
Yeah.
For me to be like, okay, well, you've come to me and I've got these very special cards all around me. Oh, I'm going to have to close my windows. The long guys are here.
Okay.
Just finish quick. But, like, no, you have to use your own common sense. Don't give your power away to me. I'll offer you my advice and what I'm sensing and can see. But then it's the ultimate decision is yours.
Yeah.
It's yours. You decide.
Exactly.
So
I don't want to just, you go with your window, and I'll say this. You don't want to disempower them. I always want to make sure that I'm not doing that. Yesterday, I had a client. She's broken up with this guy like twice since she started working with me since the beginning of the year. And she can sense that he's starting to date again. And she wanted confirmation of that. And could I have told her, no, I'm not going to give you that confirmation? Sure. But that's not the relationship she and I have built over time. And I said, yeah, I'm picking up that, yeah, he's opening up to dating again. This is his form of moving on. And oh, Lord, she didn't get mad at me. She was frustrated. She kind of said a few things. And then later on in the day, she sent a message like, I blocked him on everything. And I said, that's good for you, honey, because you don't need to see him liking somebody's social media, this and doing that and being wrapped up in what he's doing after this breakup, but I didn't say, girl, he's starting to move on. I answered her question, but I didn't tell her block him or never reconcile with him again. We don't know what the future is. She made that decision, but is it a wrong decision? Probably not. She probably needs to block him. They've been broken up twice. He's trying to move on. Maybe it's time for her to move on.
Right. No, but so really good point. So this is a client you have a relationship with, right? Yeah. So the example I was giving before, I was really thinking in my mindset of someone who's reading on a platform right now. And I just basically have new people coming and going all the time.
That's true.
I don't have a relationship. It's just this sort of one-off thing of like, here, I have this big life problem. Tell me what to do. You know? Okay, well, I'll throw some cards. I'll tune in, but I'm not going to present it like the absolute gospel to you, which a lot of readers do. And it's a great way to get people coming back to you. But like, for me, that's not ethically right. That's not ethically right to do that. Not because I haven't even laid eyes on this person. I haven't met them in real time or seen them over Zoom or I don't have a sense of their full energy picture. So I am not going to give a strong, I'm not going to throw down like that and give a really strong reading. To me, that's not ethically. I can't do it. It just doesn't work for me.
And a way to
now, if they come back for me multiple readings, then
that's true.
Then I would have a relationship, and I'd be like, look, it's pretty clear what's going on here. You've told me X, Y, Z, PDQ. We've done 4 readings on this, and then I could be much more firm with the person.
That's true. That's true. You could be more firm, like, when we talked about this before. But sometimes you can even ask just kind of probing questions. Some people are readers are shy about asking follow-up questions or saying, like somebody like, is my spouse cheating on me? Oh, and especially if this is a new querent or a new client, you're like, do they give you? It's a natural, curious thing. I would ask my girlfriend or anybody, do you have any
Why? What's going
indication?
on?
Yeah,
Right,
why
right,
do you think that?
right.
Well, they just stopped talking to me. Well, why don't we explore instead what's the root at the root of why they're not talking to you? If it comes out that there's some kind of cheating, okay, we'll talk about that. But oftentimes, many of the times, the people that are asking these love relationship questions are they're having communication issues, they're not tending to their relationship or tending to themselves, and there's other things going on that need to be dealt with, not so much cheating. There's been a
Right.
couple of times it's like, I'm not picking up on infidelity, I'm picking up on y'all getting on each other's nerves,
Hurt
but
feelings, right?
yeah.
Hurt feelings. Somebody's still pissed about something, but they won't say it. Yeah.
Exactly. And now your mind is going to, and then one of my queries was like, yeah, I do have a overactive imagination, but I talked to someone else and they think they might be cheating. Well, okay, but do you have evidence of that? And I'm here to tell you, I don't see it in the cards.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
Yeah.
that. Tony
Yeah.
says, absolutely, Kim. Sorry, limited to number of characters that can be typed in a message. Do trying to nutshell things. Oh, no, I got it. I got it. That I get exactly what you meant um, about that. Oh, so she does say, what if you get it wrong and they hurt? And I missed this last part. That's a liability here as a complementary therapy given verbally. And yes, in Europe, like, you have to be in the
Oh, I
US
see.
too. It could be very litigious. You could like if you work on a platform, you could cause liability to the hotline platforms. You have to be very careful. That's why they have these rules that you terms of service, you don't do that. However, I come from a background of insurance. I even have insurance on my business. I have disclaimers when people first start working with me. Um, oh, thank you, love. Appreciate you. Um, Disclaimers. Not that that's going to prevent anything from happening, but you could say, I'm not going to give you legal advice, but if I pick up on something, maybe you need to go get checked up. I have cards too in my collection. One of my Doreen Virtue decks, the Butterfly Transformation deck, it has all sorts of things. Maybe it's time to go get a second opinion. Is one of the key meanings, like one of the book meanings. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, okay, you need to go get a checkup. That could be construed as medical advice. But if they're like coming to you saying, I have an ache and a pain, well, go see a doctor. Am I giving medical advice in that? No, I'm not. But you're right. You have to be concerned and careful. But with that being said, we don't want to be so concerned and careful that we are now not really helping anyone, really.
Right. Not giving anything that's of substance, we're just giving sort of this very generic
Fluff.
answer.
Right.
Because
Right.
one of the points that Krista makes, I'm just looking at my notes here again, that we to be so mindful that people come to us for a whole host of reasons,
Mm-hmm.
but the bottom line is they're seeking assistance and guidance. This is her quote from her, in a world they don't fully understand.
Oh, I love that.
Right? That really, like, yeah.
Yeah.
And isn't that true for, like, I don't fully understand the world either. And I consult with all kinds of people, colleagues, friends, you
True.
know, my husband, my neighbors, we're all just trying to figure things out. Trying to
True.
figure things out because the
All
world
of
is
us.
tricky.
It
The
is
world is really
tricky.
tricky.
Yeah. And so it it's
And
tricky. And that's go ahead. Because I'm
and
curious to see what you're gonna say next.
so here's another, and another thing Krista says is, they're just trying to say to you, like, how am I supposed to get through this?
Mm-hmm.
How do I find a way to do it that both pleases the gods and benefits me? That was one of her lines. That really struck me. I was like, that just, like, that's the truth to me. Like, that's right. That's, people come to you and they're like, I don't understand. I'm trying to figure out how to get through this. And how am I going to do it without pissing off, creator, whatever, the vibes? It's funny, like the language that people come to you, especially people who are like, this type of spiritual modality is new to them. They'll say things like, well, what are the vibes telling you, or like,
Yeah.
and they're just trying to say like, help me figure it out. I don't want to piss anybody off here, but like, I need to get, I need to take care of myself. I need to get through this.
And
So
really and truly, they just need, as I'm advancing in my work as a reader, oftentimes people just want to like say what they need to say, get it out there, talk to someone like you mentioned earlier that's not in the situation, that's a stranger. They done talk their friends and family and coworkers ears off about the matter. They're embarrassed and they just need to kind of help navigate, or maybe they have an intuitive hunch about something and they need confirmation or they need some direction. And that's why I like how hotlines will now have us refer to ourselves as advisors, because that's really what it is. um Advising, um even mentoring in some ways, I like that term. I
yeah,
like that a lot.
coaching.
Coaching.
Right. And we all have different, modalities and trainings, even on the hotlines, we're not all card readers. Some people are
Hmm.
astrologers, some people are mediums,
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know,
exactly. It's like,
some people are
and
Akashic records, like, and
that's
these are
true.
very different modalities. The general public doesn't tend to understand that,
That's true.
but there's particular flavors of how we advise. It's all based on our training and our orientation.
That's true. Very true. All the different modalities that we offer. Some people are astrologers on the platforms, and I'm not. Like I'm like I'm not a, So it just depends too on what modality they go through. And Bev says, also in total transparency, I will read differently for an old friend than a client.
Yep,
Good
me
point.
too.
An old friend will usually get whatever reading they want. So I guess I have situational ethics. Oh, Beth, right on. Actually, that's a
Yeah.
good point. Situational ethics. I like that.
Or well, yeah, that's a cool term.
Mm-hmm.
But is it really that? If you have very, like, your previous comment, Beth, was about, the liabilities that you have in your part of the world. What was that comment? It
Or
was like,
Tony had mentioned,
or
because I
was it
think
Tony?
Beth's in
Okay, maybe I'm
our
confusing.
part of the world. Tony mentioned, oh, there we go. Tony says, what if you get it wrong and they hurt the cheater, later stating the action is following your advice? Yeah. I get it. It's probably a real fear that we all like don't want to admit to as professional readers. But you know what? If you are coming through with the right intentions and you're tapped in and you're bringing forth your best self, and when I'm not feeling good too, there's been like the last month in May when I was like really going through a heavy grieving point. I had to minimize the readings I did because I wasn't in a good head and heart space. Probably not in a good space to be doing readings. So I minimize the number of readings. So I try to, when I'm ready to do readings, I try to show up as my best self and come with a good heart intention of being of help and having spirit. I'm going to be the conduit for spirit with this querent. And it doesn't seem like it's steering me wrong. I'm like, so
Yeah, no, it's good.
yeah.
Right, but situational ethics, or we just inherently know, like, okay, well, I can't really, I don't want to run the risk of answering this person's question full out because I'm on a
Mm-hmm.
platform and, I might get dinged for giving medical advice if I
Right.
say, well, I'm feeling stuff in my abdomen and that tells me that, you might have some, whatever, just repress.
True.
Even if you say that's repressed feelings, you might get dinged for, like, that's medical advice. Don't give people medical advice. Well,
Mm-hmm.
okay, but I'm highly empathic. I pick up things of other people in my body all the time, even in the
Mm-hmm.
supermarket, minding my own business. Okay, I could walk by
Mm-hmm.
somebody and be like, uh-oh, that person needs to take care of their heart, because like,
Mm-hmm.
that's, I can just feel it. It's their
Mm-hmm.
heart's not in good shape, like, and I'm just trying to buy my groceries. I'm not, listen, the days are long gone when I would go around in public and be like, oh my gosh, I can feel so much. When you first open up, you're like, wow, this is amazing, and
Yeah.
then you get so overwhelmed you can't function, and you finally learn, like, okay, don't do that. Just go
Yeah.
get your groceries and mind your own business.
Yeah, get in and get out. Like, yeah.
Somebody a long time ago that I very much admire finally said to me one day when I could really hear it, just because you can feel all that doesn't mean you should.
Ooh, good one
I was like,
on so many
right.
levels.
But her point was, because it's not good for you physically. We were
Mm-hmm.
trying to sort me out because I was all strung out from over empathing all over the place. She's like, well, just because you can feel all that doesn't mean you should, or that you have to, or
Solid
that you have
advice.
to. Like, just bring it
Such
in.
great advice. Yeah,
Yeah.
rein it in just because you can. And I see a lot of people, all of us do that from time to time, overextending ourselves. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Ah,
Mm-hmm.
great reminder,
Yeah.
especially for empaths. Is yeah, you gotta have to turn it off. And
Totally.
so yes. Now, with that being said, in the private practice, so for example, I don't do certain readings that I can't do on the hotlines. There are some readings I do in my private practice, like conception readings, right? And when I say conception, I mean I'm not going to give them like all the ins and outs of like trying to conceive, like like I'm a like what do you call those doctors, fertility specialist. That is not it. I approach it from an energetic, are there any blockages to conception? And my specialty is for women who have experienced loss, because I've experienced loss as being a mother. So I thoroughly enjoy offering those readings. And it would make me sad if I couldn't offer those. But in society, they're like, you're not supposed, that's not polite. You shouldn't offer that. Well, I'm gonna offer it in my private
Right.
practice, not on the hotlines. But I have disclaimers, and it's usually new clients. Because what ended up happening with those kind of readings, they end up either having their baby, or they and one lady, she was trying for like a year or so, and then she came back and told me she had a baby. But most of the time, I don't really see him again. It's not like a love situation where they're coming back all the time. So I don't know what ends up happening unless they update me. But I have there's the
Mm-hmm.
disclaimers. You need to get medical advice. I even have, you know, make sure you are also consulting a medical, your doctor, your medical team, or this or that, if you're trying to conceive or what have you, because this is not what that is. I'm giving you energy information. Okay. So, yeah. But if I
Mm-hmm.
listen to society, no, can't do it. Not supposed to do that. Don't do it. And I've had some powerful moments of readings where we're both crying. Um, yeah. And I wouldn't change
Yeah,
it
me
for the
too.
world, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
My flavor of that tends to be more on the therapeutic
mm-hmm,
side, where I tend to get psychological with my close clients, my longtime clients,
mm-hmm,
and it can be very heartfelt, after knowing somebody for a really long time, watching them dig deeply into an issue, and then we finally kind of get to
mm-hmm.
the crux of the matter, or we just touch on something that's really hard, and just trying to help them sort out, and they still don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah,
That's a very therapeutic position to be in.
it really is.
And,
And
there's lots of taboo about, well, you shouldn't do that. You're not, no, I am not a therapist, but my clients are clear about that. My long-term clients, friends are
yeah,
very clear. No, I'm not a therapist, but I have quite a bit of other training. I
mm-hmm,
have, I do have a bachelor's in behavioral science. I'm not like completely unaware about things psychological, sociological, but no, I'm
mm-hmm.
clear. I'm not your therapist, but this is what I feel and sense for you. So,
Exactly. I I just can't, yeah, I can't imagine turning that away, turning that off. You certainly can, but I don't want to. And so does that make me morally or ethically wrong? I don't know.
No.
And so Tony was like, that's a great question. Probably when I was saying about um, just probing, asking probing. Don't be afraid to ask a question, a follow-up question with your querent. Like, why do you think they're cheating? What
Mhm.
or I have a client last night at work, new job. I'm excited for her. She got a new job. She's like, I don't know if I'm going to make it past probation period. Why do you think that? Are you being too hard on yourself? What's
Mhm.
going on with that? Let's see. Because I'm showing something different, but let's see why do you say that? Say it out loud. Lay it on me. And then she really says her fears. I haven't made friends here yet, and I don't feel solid. Oh, okay. So now we're going. Yeah, sometimes I think there's this misconception that we're not allowed to ask the questions too, like only the querent, because querent is question, the root word querent, you know what I mean, question. Anyhow, only they can ask the question. But no, I feel like we can ask a follow-up question or two, to get some clarity on where is this stemming from. Beth says, I tell my new clients a shortened version of my beliefs on how I read and how I think readings work so they know my roots and where I'm coming from. Absolutely. I end up having to I used to have on one of my platforms that I work where I say, oh, I'm a love and destiny expert, but then I was attracting a lot of people that weren't in a real alignment with what my real belief system is, which I believe in free will. I believe at any point we can change course. And that includes your person of interest that you're asking about. Destiny implies that it's predestined, and that's just not. So I'm very clear now in my
Mhm.
descriptions on my reading offerings about who
Yeah.
I am as a reader so they can get it right or go to someone who is more in alignment with their belief system.
Yeah, likewise. I try, I'm really clear on my website and my profile online. And that's my preference too. It's not always possible when you work on someone else's platform and you're being paid by the minute, but like I really wish if you're with me in the physical or over Zoom with me, I take just a minute or two and I do the blitz of like, look, and to get a sense of they ever had any kind of reading before. It can be so different for people. What is their understanding of divination? They can have just a very general
That's
sort of
true.
vague sense. Sometimes people just think much more magically about the whole thing than I do. Again, I'm quite practical and grounded. Like, okay, we're going to get some information here, but it's all about what you think and feel about it and what you're going to do with it, like, so that is the ideal situation for me too, is to be able to do that. Tell your clients a shortened version of your beliefs, how you read, for sure. Because
For
then
sure.
the reading makes the reading go so much more smoothly.
That's true. That's very true. And in Buddhism, Beth says, you observe your thoughts because they are fleeting and no need to let yourself get wrapped up in them. And then she says, my oldest child is a social worker and she specializes in working with clients who have trouble getting pregnant and or suffer miscarriages. Bless, bless her,
Yeah.
him or her, she. She says she. Bless her. It's much needed work,
Yeah.
you
It's
know,
sacred work.
very sacred work in a very pragmatic, like it's very rooted in the earth, right? Like this is, social work. It's like, okay, it's not woo woo, but in the essence, it's very spiritual what she would be doing and who she's helping. I'm grateful, Beth,
Yeah.
because
That's
I
great.
had to benefit from such a person myself. And so yeah, it's and then just the whole with the class when we circle back to the coulds and woulds and shoulds and you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. And then you ask the bigger question, well, where did they come from?
Mm.
The like the implications. We know liability, but then even that kind of touches on, okay, the threat of, oh, I could be sued, or there could be some sort of retribution against me for giving bad advice, or it does kind of, it's like, okay, is there some sense of classism? Is there some sense of needing to keep us in a box? Who benefits from control our gifts? Who benefits from someone, like, let's say someone who thought they needed to go to, and I'm not saying, I'm a big fan of therapy. Who here has benefited? I have. But let's say a lady who was like, she is going to therapy. She's in therapy. I have many clients. She's like, I have a tarot reader, I have an astrologist, I have a feng shui expert, and I have a therapist. From California, that is a real thing. Like, people got their specialists, and the tarot reader might be one of them. But let's say she has a therapist and she talks to you and she gets what she needs. The medical industry is not going to get that extra money, right? They benefit, like, you have to think about who benefits from keeping us small, keeping us not fully being expansive, staying connected with each other, building bridges together, overcoming differences. Who benefits from that? You have to ask yourselves these things. Does anyone benefit from that? And that's why I really appreciated Aunty K's video, because she lays it out there.
She's got her own beliefs, and they're quite, yeah.
She laid it out there.
What she references up front is just, going back like hundreds of years. She made some comment about historically, and so what if, I haven't researched this, although I may now, like, it's fascinating, what if a lot of these beliefs go way back, and they could very well tie in with the Christian church. The Christian church loved to control the pagans and the people with the earth-based spirituality, things like that, so
don't get too big for your britches. Don't access your magic and turn it against us, because we know how powerful you all are collectively. We know.
Right. No, come to us, like, come to our priests. Our priests are the ones who can talk to God for you and do all these things and clear your demons and blah, blah, So we know that there's real history here, right? And what if it's just basically what we're exploring here is, like, what if this is just one more form of systemic racism and classism that, like, we've all kind of been subject to? We all just, it's, our grandparents drank the Kool-Aid way back when and served it up to us, doing the best they could, trying to raise us up with some morals and some ethics, and but that it's not really serving us anymore. So we can talk more about that next time.
Like, next time, for sure, because that's a big topic.
The ethics of one of her questions was, which of our ethics are oppressing our clients?
Yeah, which of our ethics are oppressing our clients? That's the next frontier that we go into, because I do feel like we all are part of that system of doing that, and I'm so curious to hear what you all have to say about that too. For sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, look who's here.
Hey, Aunty K.
Hey, friend. Hey. Because that's the thing. It's like, who benefits from us playing small? It's an age-old question. It's not even just with psychics and readers and such. Who benefits from us forgetting our power?
Women. There's lots of that going on for women, right?
Lots going on. And so we have to pay attention. Yes, there's certain parameters. Yes, we should have our own personal ethics and morals surrounding the work that we do and what we give. And that is important. I will always harp on that. But just take another moment to pause. Where is it coming from? Especially if you're like me, who have resistance, like third-party readings. I've been doing that. It doesn't feel wrong to me.
Can I just say, I just so love that about you. Like, I just love that story. If you told that, it didn't click until now. Like, it's just one more reason to love Kim, that, like, she just was doing her own thing from the get-go, and then they tried to tell her she was is wrong. She's like, oh, I don't think so. This is just how I'm doing it, so I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, yeah. I suppose I knew better, and I still was like, I'm not gonna do better. Yeah, so I don't know.
Well, and it's all how we language it, right? Like there, you know, different platforms, different times, different, subject clients, right? Like we all have to be creative with our language, right?
Mhm.
And that's why this conversation is so valuable, because what she keeps saying to us over and over is like, what are your ethics? Like, so if we all just get clear about what are our individual ethics as readers, and then yes, there's always going to be some, we hope and pray there will always be some overarching societal ethics that we all just say, look, this is the line in the sand here. Okay, this is right and this is not right, and we don't do,
Right.
get clear about that, and then let everybody else find their own way, have their own beliefs, and be your own reader, and to be less in fear about, "Oh, I'm not being a polite, I can't be like this and read in polite society,
True. Yeah, and that's just so. It can be liberating, but it can be also daunting when you think about it. On one hand, it's like, okay, well, I don't have to ascribe to what they're saying, but then you have to. I always get back to, you got to understand your why. Why are you doing something? Why are you not doing something? And where is that coming from? And when you get clear about that, then it makes it easier for you to move and navigate in the work that you do. I love that Aunty K is here. I'm looking at the comments here. Tony says, a lot of folks think all tarot readers are mediums and psychics. There are amazing mediums who use tarot cards to switch on messages and connection, for sure. For sure. Our friend
But
is
not
here,
all
our
of us
inspiration.
are.
Not all of us.
Right.
Yeah. I know many mediums who don't use cards at all. Remote viewers certainly don't need to use cards. And then there's some of us who are like, I'm not a medium. I'm not a psychic. I'm a cartomancer. I work with cards. This is what I do. So yeah, I love that's the beauty of it. There's so many of us. And so many different ways to offer up our gifts. Let's see. Auntie K says, I just got here working at the moment. No problemo, friend. We're going to be talking more and more about, more and more about what you brought forth here. Auntie K says, who benefits from us questioning our ability to read fortunes? Thank you. Before we wrap up, I wanted to talk about the fortune telling. To read fortunes, predict the future, spy on third party. Oh yeah, we talked about some spying on the third party, and and we're gonna probably go deeper when we pick up the conversation again. Auntie K says, I feel it's mostly the colonizer who doesn't want us doing that. And who benefits from us being disconnected and disempowered. And not tapping into our connective power together, male, and Beth says male and white. Auntie K says, yes, the why is often the real intent. Exactly. The why. What is your why in anything you're doing? What is your why? And then sometimes you'll figure out, like, this is not my why. This is someone else's why. This is societal why, and it doesn't fit with me. And if I feel, I'm not wishing, death upon. I mean, sometimes people probably would wish death, but no, that would be a ethical line in the sand for me personally.
Yeah,
might be different for someone else, but I think we all as a society can agree. You don't want to wish. I guess you don't want to wish harm on others, but aside from that, I don't think I'm doing wrong with fortune telling. That gets a big stigma that only gypsies and people who are unscrupulous, they are doing fortune telling, and that got a bad rap. And it's like, who gave it a bad rap? Why do they have a bad rap? Fortune tellers.
That's a big ball of wax. let's do some, I want to come back to that one
Yeah,
because,
we are going to come
yeah,
back to that one.
yeah, I'm going to do a
Wow.
little more research on that one.
Yeah, we're going to do some research because there's the historical context, and that could really help us to really understand the why on that. And maybe, hopefully, lessen some of that stigma on that. That's, because.
And talk about changing terminology. So, I mean, I just full disclosure, I'll say, and we'll save it for next time, but like, I'm not terribly comfortable with the term fortune teller.
Mm,
And I've been sitting with this a lot lately. It's been coming up. So, I don't call myself a fortune teller. But there's a bunch of words that I don't use for myself. And yet I know by the strict definition, yeah, basically, that many people would say that's what I'm doing. But like language changes over time. People's beliefs change over time. So
mm-hmm.
anyway, that's a whole thing. There's the shamanic language, there's the witch word, all this kind of stuff. So that could
Triggering.
be, yeah, it can be triggering. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's see, Tony, and then we'll wrap it up. Tony says, agreed. Ethics is almost bordering a type of registering body being needed to govern, though, in your opinion. Um, Governing body, that is something too we can tap it. I'm going to make a mental note because I want to explore that too. Do we need a governing body? There probably would be some people on one side saying no. And then there's going to be some people like, oh, hell yeah, we do. And then there's people, in the middle. And what would why do we need that? And what would that look like? And then Aunty K says, no, like I've wished harm of others, but it's always been public figures. Like what? Yeah, like when I cursed Jordan Peterson with my friends before an action against him. Who's Jordan? Well, we'll have a side conversation. I don't know who Jordan. I'm out of the loop. I mean, public figures, I'm guilty of it too. So I'm guilty. I don't know if I wish harm, but I certainly wish like they go somewhere and sit down and be quiet. And I don't know what that entails to get them to be quiet and sit down. It would be interesting to find out the origin of the term fortune teller, Beth says. Like suffragist is derogatory. Spinster means a woman who can support herself. I'm suspicious. Ooh, I need to screen grab this too. Both of you all bring up some great points, Tony, about the whole governing body, and not, that could be something some people agree with, some people don't. And then this is important, the origin of these certain triggering words that incite fear, especially for the Bible thumpers. Let's see. Yeah. Sorry,
it's
y'all.
like anything else. You need to do your own research, you come to your own conclusions, be open, be willing to change. You may have beliefs when you start out in this field, and then they're going to change and develop over time. And ultimately, you have to come back to yourself, your own, what your own body mind is telling you, what you're comfortable with, what you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just doing the best we can here. That's all. And we can agree on some things and disagree on others. And that's all. That's cool too. We're not all that. Especially in this field, we're a pretty diverse bunch of people. That's what I love about it.
Me too.
We're tend to be very artistic, diverse spiritually. And we didn't talk much about the thread that Krista brought up about just being culturally sensitive as readers.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a big passion of mine.
Mm-hmm. We don't have to talk about that too. Our differences, in our community, they're so diverse, so different, but that could be, we could demonstrate to the larger masses of how to be able to navigate our differences and actually celebrate them versus being divided by them. Yes, diversity, I love words, but I want to be inclusive and to celebrate, our differences. And so, yeah, we got a lot to cover. Like we got a lot to cover.
Great.
So anti-governing, and so Aunty K says, so anti-governing bodies. And to that end, I also want to make an announcement that Aunty K and I are working on a panel discussion in the near future we're going to be talking about some of the challenges posed to um, BIPOC, people of color, as professional readers or healers, and the challenges. So you all stay tuned for that. I'm excited about we're going to gather a panel together. So
That
that's
sounds great.
exciting. And Tony says, I meant to have a greed ethics. It is bordering what I said. Okay, I got it. He said, oh no, he's a big transphobe and culture war. Oh, culture war person. That's so boo. I think that's why the name rung a bell. But I'm like, I'm a little out of the loop.
Yeah, me.
Another good topic. Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. We're going to get into that. Perfecto. Yeah, I'm going to connect with you, Aunty K. So we'll be connecting and getting together. And I would just want to thank you, Donna, for broaching the topic, just being a fabulous co-host. I just thank you.
Oh, I so enjoy being with you. And this is a great topic. So thank you, Krista, for your initial video. It's been like really, really great for me to sit with this and dive into it and have these conversations with Kim. And
Yeah.
it's really great.
Yeah.
So
Do not miss out on it. If you all are wondering about this video, I did put it in my community tab post. Check it out. Check out Aunty K. Check out my homegirls, Aunty K. Aunty K's Tarot. That's the inspiration for today's video live stream. And then Donna, Artists and Oracles. Check out her channel. When we do resume our series, we'll be probably headed over to Artists and Oracles.
yeah, we'll
We like
come
to
back on my
switch.
channel.
Yes.
And just one more quick thought, for those of you listening or catching the replay, like, throw some cards on this for yourself. Like, have a think, sit with it. And then just, begin to ask. Be like, okay, what do I need to take away from this? What's this bringing up for me? What are my ethics? Who am I serving?
Yes. Who am I serving? Who am I
How
serving?
how am I doing for my clients? Am I doing okay? Should I be worried about this? Do I need to think about it?
That
Just
would be good.
between you, your cards and your guides, no
Mm-hmm.
need, no governing body of our ethics. We have like
Yeah.
governing
You are
bodies
the
right
governing
now,
body.
and
Yes,
they're
for
all
now.
imploding and fighting, and they're not being very ethical, in my opinion. So no, I don't want any more governing bodies. I want to just
Yeah.
govern my own body.
But but it would be interesting to see, like, if you did throw some cards on it, what are your personal ethics? What stands out? So I'd be curious, and leave it in the comments section. Okay. Let's hear from you, your
Yeah.
thoughts on what we talked about. We covered, there's so much, like I said, there's more. And 11 minutes is Aunty K's video. You would think this is a very short video, but I tell you what, there was so much just juicy stuff in that video, not to be missed. So check it out, friends. Do me a favor, on your way out, please hit the like button, and please don't forget to subscribe to Abundant Life Tarot, Artists and Oracles, and Aunty K's Tarot. I realize all of our channels start with A. Hey. So thank you all so much for joining us today. I appreciate each and every one of you. And
Ditto, likewise. Thanks, everyone. Take good care.
Bye. Tarot Anarchy, no governing bodies. That's what we're going to end on today. Tarot Anarchy. Woo! Bye, friends.